Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the regular scheduled Taber Town Council meeting for March 28, 2022. We first off have a subdivision authority meeting to deal with, so I'll call that subdivision authority meeting to order and ask for the adoption of the agenda as presented, please. Councillor Firth.
I move that we adopt the agenda as presented.
Motion on the table. All in favor? Carried. Now, so just for the record, Councillor Bruin is unable to attend this evening's meeting as well. All right, on to adoption of minutes. Item 3.1, minutes of the regular subdivision authority meeting May 25th, 2021. Mr. Thibault.
Minutes before council. The last meeting was a long time before me, and quite a while ago since we've had one, but they're here for council's consideration.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? None whatsoever. Someone prefer to make that motion? Councillor Bickering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll move the subdivision authority adopts the minutes. Adopts the minutes of the regular meeting of subdivision authority held on May the 25th, 2021 as presented.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. On to item number 4, subdivision applications. Item 4.1, subdivision TT 22-0-001. Mr. Thibault.
I believe Ms. Katie Schlamp is going to come up and provide a presentation.
All right, thank you. Ms. Schlamp.
Good afternoon, Your
Good
Worship
afternoon.
and Council. Helma Thompson Land Surveys has applied to subdivide one residential lot from a larger remainder lot on behalf of the property owner. If approved, the property owner intends on selling the newly created lot for future development of a single detached dwelling. The subject property was annexed into the town in 2020 and is subject to an annexation agreement. Under this agreement, the town has indicated one residential lot could be subdivided off the parcel without triggering any changes to the agreement. It was also agreed upon that the parcel would remain under the MD of Taber's Rural Urban Fringe Land Use District. The proposed subdivision does meet the standards of the MD's land use bylaw. Several comments were received from utility providers and considered in the proposed subdivision conditions. Additionally, the newly created lot will need to be serviced and access to the property will need to be created. As such, a condition has been proposed to require the landowner to enter into a servicing agreement or a deferred servicing agreement to ensure that this occurs.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? All right, someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Firth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that the subdivision authority approves of subdivision TT 22-0-001, Lot 2, Block 1, Plan 0610282, within the southeast quarter section of 12 Township 10, Range 17, west of the 4th Meridian, civically described as 3901A and 3901B, 64th Avenue, with the following 18 conditions as follows.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And on to item 4.2, subdivision TT 22-0-002. Mr. Thibault.
We'll let Katie do the same thing a second time.
All right, thank you. Katie.
Thank you. Brown Okamura and Associates has applied to consolidate 3 lots on one title for subdivision into 2 lots on 2 titles. The landowner intends on selling the newly created lot for future development. The remainder lot will remain the same with the existing dwelling on it. The subdivision does not meet the subdivision standards of Land Use Bylaw 13-2020, as the minimum lot width required for the R2 district is 11 meters, which is 36 feet, and the width provided is 8.78 meters or 28.81 feet. The minimum lot area required for the district is 350 square meters, and the area provided is 323.75 square meters. Because of this, the Municipal Planning Commission did not recommend the subdivision for approval. Administration had originally recommended that the subdivision be approved and we have changed our recommendation based on MPC's feedback. Although the lot is narrow and does not meet the land use bylaw standards, administration believes the lot would still allow for a narrower home to be built With setbacks in mind, the lot would allow for a 6.38 meter or a 20-foot wide home to be built on the lot. A smaller lot and a smaller buildable area could potentially achieve a lower overall cost for new home ownership. Municipalities such as the town of Canmore and the municipality of the Crow's Nest Pass do provide land use districts for narrow lot residential to allow subdivision of smaller lots. Both of these jurisdictions have a minimum lot width of 7.6 meters, which is 24.9 feet, and a minimum lot area of 230 square meters. The purpose of the narrow lot residential is to allow single detached dwellings on narrower lots, as it provides the opportunity for a more compact urban form through a more efficient utilization of land in residential areas, while maintaining the privacy and independence offered by single detached housing. Should the subdivision authority wish to approve the subdivision, administration has provided an alternate resolution with the recommended conditions for the subdivision. The subdivision was circulated to internal and external stakeholders, as well as neighboring properties within 100 meters of the subdivision. No opposition to the subdivision was received, and all comments have been considered in the proposed subdivision conditions provided as an alternate resolution.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? See none whatsoever, someone prepared to make a motion. Councillor Sorensen?
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, I did have a question.
Sure, absolutely, go ahead.
Sorry about that. Thanks, Katie, for the information. I know there are different areas, perhaps in the northwest area. I was just wondering if there are other lots that we've made consideration for in the town.
So there are lots in the town that would be similar widths to what has been proposed. However, they are not for single detached dwellings. The subdivision standards are specific to what you plan to build on the lot. So if it's a single detached house, it's 11 meters. If it is half of a semi-detached, or what's commonly known as a duplex, then it's smaller. I think it's 7.5 meters. So you will see some lots that are narrower than 11 meters, but that's because it's meant for half of a building. I could not find, but I would not say for certain, that there isn't a lot with a single detached dwelling that is similarly sized to what was proposed. I just was not able to find it.
All right, thank you. Any other questions arising? Councillor Rudd?
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm in support of a narrower lot. There's many reasons for it. In reading through the materials here, there was one concern about the perhaps setting a precedence, and that's what happens whenever you make a decision. You're setting a precedence for the next one. I don't think it's going to open a floodgate for this type of thing. And if there's 4 or 5 others, the benefit is that someone gets a home that they can afford to live in. We always have the option of maybe putting some architectural controls in there to make sure that it's, aesthetically blends with the neighborhood. So just wanted to put that on the record, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Councillor Beckering?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Prepared to make a motion.
All right, thank you.
I'll move that the subdivision authority approve subdivision TT 22-0-002 within lots 23, 25 exclusive, block 17, plan 6390L, within the northwest quarter of section 32, township 9, range 17, west of the 4th meridian, specifically described as 5031 45th Avenue, with the following 9 conditions as stated in the informative.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Opposed? Defeated. Thank you. All right, with that, I will declare the subdivision authority meeting closed. As far as the regular scheduled Tabortown Council meeting, I'll call that meeting to order and move directly into a public hearing, which we'll also call the public hearing to order. Related to the public hearing, members of the public in attendance who wish to speak against or for proposed bylaw number 2-2022 will have a 5-minute time limit. for speaking and must state their full name for the record, and must state if they are speaking for themselves, of, on, or behalf of an organization. Item 2.2, Land Use Bylaw Amendment 8-2021. Mr. Tebow.
It looks like it's the Katie Schlamps show again, so she'll be back up to speak to us.
All right, thank you. Katie?
Thank you. Bylaw 2-2022 to amend Land Use Bylaw 13-2020 received first reading at the March 14th meeting of Council. The proposed amendments will fix clerical errors, address changes to legislation, and address areas not previously in the land use bylaw. Additionally, bylaw 2-22 will amend bylaw 8-2021 to remove the current direct control for district development standards in section 3.1. These standards will be reinserted into the land use bylaw with changes as a part of the amendments in bylaw 2-2022. Following first reading, administration placed an ad in the Tabor Times for 2 weeks to advertise the public hearing of this bylaw. To date, no comments or concerns were received in writing. The proposed amendment and public hearing date were also made available on the town's website. Completing the public hearing will allow the public to voice their concerns or support for the proposed changes. Following the public hearing, council may give second and third reading of bylaw 2-22 to finalize the bylaw. During this time, amendments to the proposed bylaw can be made with consideration for any feedback received today.
All right, thank you. You've already answered this, Katie, but for formality purpose, I will ask you if the Planning and Community Service Office has received any written briefs against the proposed bylaw number 2-2022.
We have not.
All right, thank you. Is anyone present who wishes to speak against proposed bylaw number 2-2022? Anyone wish to speak against proposed bylaw number 2-2022 for a second time? And anyone present wishing to speak against proposed bylaw number 2-2022 for a third and final time? All right, seeing none, I would require a motion. Sorry, Mr. Tebow, just to back that up here. We're doing that at the end, correct? Or can we do that after each individual as such?
My understanding is that there isn't a motion required at this time.
There is, okay. All right, thank you. And thank you also, Carrie, for that clarification. And Councillor Firth?
We do need a motion, or we do not, because there are no,
There isn't
okay.
one required.
All right, did you
I'm
have
good.
any of that?
No.
Okay.
Sorry, there is one
Okay,
required.
that's-
My
all right.
mistake.
There is required. Okay, that's what I understood. All right. As per, yes, okay.
Okay.
There is a recommended motion there.
Perfect,
Councillor Firth, prepared to do that?
yes.
All right, thank
I
you.
move that council accepts the written and oral briefs against proposed land use bylaw amendment bylaw 2-2022 for information purposes.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 2.4, presentation of written or oral briefs for bylaw 2-2022. Again, for clarification purposes, Ms. Slump, has the Planning and Community Service Office received any written briefs for proposed bylaw number 2-2022?
No, we have not.
All right, thank you. Is anyone present who wishes to speak for proposed bylaw number 2-2022? Is anyone present who wishes to speak for proposed bylaw number 2022 for a second time? All right, is anyone present who wishes to speak for proposed bylaw 2-2022 for a third and final time? Seeing none, all right, someone prepared to make a motion. Councilor McLean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I propose that council accepts the written and oral briefs for proposed land use bylaw amendment bylaw 2-2022 for information purposes.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. And I do hereby declare the meeting closed. Whew, glad that's over, eh? All right. On to the regular scheduled Tabor Town Council meeting. I would ask for adoption of the agenda as presented, please. Councilor Rudden?
I'll give you that motion.
Thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 4, adoption of minutes. Item 4.1, minutes of the regular meeting of council, March 14th, 2022. Mr. Tebow.
As per usual, meeting minutes from the last meeting are in front of you for your consideration.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Sorensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I make a motion that council adopts the minutes of the regular meeting of council held on March 14th, 2022 as presented.
Thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 5, business arising. There are none. Item 6, bylaws. Item 6.1, proposed second and third reading bylaw 22-2022 to amend land use bylaw 13-2020. Mr. Tebow.
We'll see Katie one more time.
All right, Katie.
Hello again. As previously stated, bylaw 2-2022 to amend land use bylaw 13-2020 received first reading at the March 14th regular meeting of council. The proposed amendments will fix clerical errors, address changes to legislation, and address areas not previously in the land use bylaw. The proposed amendments were advertised for 2 weeks in the Tabor Times and on the town's website for the public's consideration. No feedback was received prior to the meeting, and any feedback or lack of feedback from the public hearing may be taken into consideration as well. Previously, concern was raised by council over the use of shipping containers on a temporary basis in residential areas. Administration does wish to clarify the users of shipping containers would be responsible for showing when the shipping container was delivered. If they are not able to do so, it would be considered to have been delivered 3 months prior to the Development Authority requesting that proof. This is in line with what the City of Lethbridge standards are. However, should council wish, administration can make amendments to this. With the information gathered today, council may wish to provide second and third reading to bylaw 2-2022. Should council wish, amendments can be provided and third reading could be deferred to a future meeting.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Councillor Rudd?
Just so for clarification, please, so if someone rents a container, puts it on the lot without getting the permit, then their clock backs up like 3 months and they only have 3 months left of the 6?
So we would not require them to get a permit. They would be able to place it on there, but they do need to keep like a bill of lading or something that says what day it was dropped off. And then should we receive a complaint, we would go out, we would ask them to prove when it was placed there. If they cannot prove it, we would consider it to have been there for 3 months already.
So 6 months is the time limit, correct?
That's right.
So how does that actually start and finish then if there's no permitting required? Do we wait for a complaint?
That's correct. Currently, they are not allowed there whatsoever. So the reason that we did it this way was to permit it without making it onerous on the homeowner. They could use it for a renovation or for moving, but they do not have to come in and have an additional expense of getting the permit and worry about getting that permit, especially if it is just for moving and it might be there a week. With that said, that does mean that we do need to deal with it on a complaint basis.
Yeah, so it certainly streamlines things, so thanks.
No problem.
All right, thank you. Councillor Becker?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Lamp, did you say that the city of Lethbridge is following this particular procedure?
That's correct.
And have you had any feedback from the city if it's working properly or?
We did not, no.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. Any other questions arising? All right, thank you, Ms. Lamp, for your presentation. Appreciate that. Someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Firth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move the council give second reading to bylaw 2-2022 to amend land use bylaw 13-2020 as presented.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Councillor Rudd, do you have a question? Okay, any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously, thank you. Someone prepared to make the second motion? Councillor Rudd, you good with that?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you.
Make a motion the council gives third reading to bylaw 2-2022 to amend land use bylaw 13-2020 as presented.
Thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you, Katie.
Thank you.
All right, on to item 6.2, proposed bylaw 9-2022. Mr. Tebow.
I believe Mr. Orwa has prepared something to speak to everyone about. And just a reminder to use your microphones when you're speaking, please.
All right, Mr. Orwa.
Good afternoon, with worship and members of council. Now, before you is bylaw number 9-2022. This is a long-term borrowing bylaw for wastewater lagoon solar generation project. Now, this is per the council direction to acquire 15-year debenture not exceeding the 1.38 million. You know, as a requirement under the MGA, an advertisement must be posted in the newspaper for 2 weeks and wait for the petition period to pass before bringing the bylaw back for the second and the third reading. So today, administration is only requesting the first reading of this bylaw.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? All right, Councilor Rudd.
Thanks, Mr. Rowa. I note in the materials attached here, there's talk about carbon credits. And that, is there much, it was 800 and some odd carbon credits available for this project that would come back in return. Is that a lucrative, or I don't speak that language very well. So just curious what that benefit actually amounts to.
Well, I don't speak that language either, but I would pass that to Mr. Shia to speak the language.
I don't think anybody speaks that language.
All right, thank you.
It will be coming. Your energy manager, Blake Hranik, will be coming for that explanation, because I asked that question many times too. So yes, we definitely want to keep those carbon tax credits, but let him come and present it and give us a full description of what that means.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Councilor Sorensen.
Sorry, and you probably explained this before, but was there some funding available, grants for this particular project?
Yes, there was some. No, this particular project, I think, if I recall, part of it was for debenture. The second part was coming from Energy Efficiency Fund, which we used a fraction of it to give us the total of what is required. So what you see here is just the debenture portion.
All right, just to clarify, I think there was a national grant of some type that we didn't get, right? I think that's what you're referring to, Councilor Sorensen? Okay, am I correct with that, Mr. Roy, that you're aware of?
Go ahead.
Was there?
Go ahead,
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
So at the time, all subscriptions were filled for those grants. So
Okay.
that doesn't mean we can't apply for them in the future, and we may receive that. But there again, Blake's going to come back and discuss this, because if you get the grant, then you would lose your carbon tax credits. So we have to look at both
Oh.
benefits sufficiently. So
Yeah.
we're good. And
Be nice to know
Come back to
exactly
that
what that
information.
carbon tax credit means,
Yes.
right? Yeah, that's, who do we gotta check with on that?
Actually,
Is that federal?
Federal government can
Federal?
even
Yeah,
answer
I
that
guess.
yet, so.
Okay, all right. Have to check with, Martin Shields sometime
Yeah.
next time we see him on that one. All right, thank you. Councilor Beckering.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. It seems to me, Mr. Scheer, if I may, you said at one point the town of Raymond, who's highly solarized, if that's a word, is sorry that they gave the carbon tax credits away. Is that correct, sir?
That is exactly correct. They got grant funding for the projects, and they wish they had not done that and just got the Dakota debenture the way you're doing it to retain those carbon tax credits.
All right, fair enough. Good question. All right, any other questions arising? Councilor Beckering?
Is there a motion on the floor, Mr. Mayor?
No, I don't believe so yet. Did I miss it?
Well, then I'm prepared to make that motion.
All right, go for it.
That council gives first reading to long-term borrowing dash wastewater lagoon solar generation project bylaw 9-2022 at this meeting.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. On to item 6.3, proposed supplementary assessment bylaw 10-2022. Mr. Tebow.
Mr. Orwa will remain standing.
All right, thank you, Mr. Roa.
Well, thank you very much. So before you again, this is proposed bylaw 10-2022. This is the supplementary assessment bylaw. And of course, this is the bylaw that will authorize the town's assessor to assess the improvements that have not been previously assessed or increased in value. And of course, this has also a deadline. Normally, it has to be before May. That's the sensitivity of the deadline, and we do it every year.
All right, any questions arising? Councillor Beckering?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Since time's of the essence, I'm prepared to make a motion.
All right.
Since they have to do it by law anyway, so. That council gives first reading to bylaw 10-2022 being the supplementary assessment bylaw for the town of Tabor as presented.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Someone prepared to make the second motion. Councillor Firth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council give second reading to bylaw 10-2022, being the supplementary assessment bylaw of the town of Tabor as presented.
Thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Someone prepared to make the third required motion. Councillor McLean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council unanimously agrees to proceed with the third and final reading to bylaw 10-2022, being the supplementary assessment bylaw of the town of Tabor as presented.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Someone prepared to make the fourth required motion. Councillor Sorensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I make a motion that council gives third and final reading to bylaw 10-2022, being the supplementary assessment bylaw for the town of Tabor as presented.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. On to item number 7, action items. Item 7.1, property tax penalty comparison. Mr. Thibault.
So for the purposes of efficiency, we've got Mr. Orwell who will speak to us again.
All right, thank you, Mr. Orwa.
Thank you again, members of council. So this was a request that came from a council member for illustration purposes. So I would like just to go straight to the table. I don't know whether you can magnify it a little bit for. So I think this is an illustration showing the question that was asked in that meeting. And it shows you exactly how this is being done by other municipalities. And you can see it differs from one to the other. So we picked a few municipalities just for illustration purposes, how the penalties are processed. So you can see the first segment, you see there is penalty on current taxes. So like the town of Tabor is highlighted there in yellow. So we normally run through July 1 and August 1, and that is based on our June deadline for collecting taxes. Then thereafter, if you don't pay, the beginning of the following year is now cumulative 12% on all taxes owing. And you can see the trend. Canmore does 5%, then 5%, then 5% in November. And then Strathmore, they do different things depending on what they have in their bylaw, as of course directed by those council areas. Now Cochrane is there, Clare's Home. Then on this other side, that's where we have the penalties. And this is now where it becomes a little interesting here. Now you see the town of Tabor does 12% on penalties for the total taxes due. Now other municipalities, one does 5, another 5, another 5. But what is interesting is the one I've highlighted in green, that is Coaldale. So Coaldale spreads it throughout the year, 1.5%, 1.5%. And then the bottom one, I think, should be Medicine Hat. They do the same, the 0.8, 0.8, yeah, like that. So this is how it is distributed all over Alberta. Now, the other thing would be, which one is better? What is more beneficial than the other? And I did some random math there, especially those two highlighted. And I came to a conclusion that although they spread it out 1.5 throughout the year, at the end of the year, they were still paying more than what we have. And I gave an illustration from, I just used, for example, if we had 2,800 tax that is due, If you look at the penalty side, we'll just do 12% of the 2,800, but then they'll spread 1.5, 1.5. But at the end of it all, the taxpayers will pay more than the town of Taba. So coming back to the question here, why do we do all these things? I think the whole idea probably, ours was set way back before my time, but I do believe that it is something to do with the cash flow. We tax or we levy taxes to give us the tax revenue to run municipal programs. So we want to get that money up front. So if you can't get it, that means we can't run our programs. So, and in most cases, when people see even high percentages at the beginning, they would want to pay because they don't want it to accumulate. So initially, I thought maybe it would be beneficial to spread it out. But when I worked the math, similar, if I put 2,800 out there, 12% at the beginning of the year, and then put 2,800 also in Coaldale at the beginning of the year, the taxpayer in Coaldale is going to pay more than the town of Taba. And of course, this is normally at the discretion of council to change the bylaw when we'll be changing, of course, our property tax bylaw.
All right, thank you. Councillor Rudd.
So the 12% goes on the penalty side at the end of a year of trying to collect the taxes, correct?
So the 12% on the, if you just scroll a little bit for me on this other side.
Because it goes on.
Now, the first one, if you look at the town of Taba, our taxes are due June 1. So when we come to July 1, we charge 6% on the current taxes only. If it's not paid again, August 1, we charge another 6% on the current taxes.
Right.
The following year, if it's not paid, it's now cumulative, we charge 12% of total tax arrears, current plus whatever was there in the previous period.
Including so is it compounding the initial 6%?
Correct.
Okay, so I think that, and then in the Coaldale circumstance, that second year comes around and the individual decides to pay or has the means to pay in April, so they would pay less than they would pay in Tabor.
Of course,
Because we're 12% up front and they're spreading that out. So if it goes the whole year, they pay more. But if it only goes the first 3 months and then the payment is made, there's a savings to the taxpayer.
a little bit savings to the taxpayer, just a little bit, but at the end of it, they'll be paying more.
At the end, they would pay more. I understand that. Okay, thank you.
All right, Councillor Sorensen.
Mr. Orwa, I really appreciate this information. I know it took some time, and I can appreciate that. Just kind of food for thought, when does this bylaw come up for renewal, or like, is this something you do annually to review this?
It will be coming here soon.
Okay.
The property tax bylaw will be coming here very soon. So we just started with the assessment bylaw that allows for them to assess. And again, that one will come again, property assessment tax bylaw will also come in. And around the mill rate time, we'll also bring in the property tax bylaw. And this is part of it.
Okay. I thank you for the information.
All right, thank you, Councillor Beckering.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, Mr. Over, thank you again for your presentation. I think it's a very useful and thoughtful idea to at least give us some food for thought, like Councilor Sorensen said. It seems to me that we are not the lowest, but pretty close, but we're certainly not the highest. And it's a simple, very simple system we have in place here. So unless the penalty tax bylaw comes up pretty soon, you said, or the property tax bylaw, then we can address it at that point, I guess. But it seems to me at this time we don't have to take any action, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Just,
So the only one information I need to add again in terms of total taxes, if you add the two, like in the town of Taba, you'll be having 12% on the penalty on current taxes. If you add Coaldale, it's 17%.
all right, thank you. So we're prepared to make a motion for information purposes. Councillor Rudd.
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor, that council accepts the property tax penalty comparisons for information purposes.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item Item 7.2, Bridge File 80500 Replacement Project. Mr. Tebow.
Looks like Lisa's queued herself up for us. Go ahead.
All right, thank you.
Good afternoon.
Lisa, good afternoon.
So this is our bridge file 80500 culvert replacement project that was approved in the 21 capital budget. And we've been doing engineering and environmental studies since then, and we put it out to tender at the beginning of March. We pre-qualified 11 contractors for the job, and out of those 11, 9 submitted their tender to the online bidding system. Tender closed Tuesday, March 15th at 2 o'clock, and each of the bids include site occupancy and 5% GST, and we've rated them from lowest to highest based off of what the federal government requires for their grants. So we do have a grant that we applied for and was awarded for this project. The total approved cost for the project for the 21 budget was $570,000. We got a STIP, Strategic Transportation Infrastructure Program grant for $427,500. And then the municipal portion of this works out to 25% at $142,500. So after the submissions, we have a breakdown there in the financial implications section of what was included in those. The lowest bidder was BYZ Enterprises, Inc. out of Medicine Hat, and theirs was $429,502.50, including GST, which includes the 5%, and they had site occupancy of 20 days. I provided a brief history for those of you that aren't familiar with this project. And we're hoping that the construction, because environmentally and weather related, we don't want to start this project till September, October. That way we have no chance of spring runoff. The environmental risks to any critters down there are minimal. And it's past our peak construction for our contractors bringing stuff in. So we'll start then. We're hoping minimal disruption for the road, hopefully keeping it to a 1-week shut time period. And of course, we'll post that on our website and social media and inform the MD so that they can inform their residents, and also have a signboard at the landfill. We won't have any disruption to our residential and commercial collection from town. We can make other arrangements for that. So, based on the above submissions, administration is recommending that the work be awarded to the low bidder, BYZ Enterprises, Inc., in the amount of $429,502.50, including GST. Do you have any questions?
All right, thank you. Councillor Beckering.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. DeBona, I see the tender amount is considerably lower than the approved capital budget approved amount.
Yes.
So, the STIP money stays the same, right?
Yes. We got all of that up to $427,500. But we do have in the breakdown, it will be more because we also have our engineering, environmental studies, and contingency.
No, thank
So
you,
we
Mr.
are
Mayor.
projecting that we will use the full $570,000.
Okay, but if it does not, the STIP money is commensurate to 75% of the total total end amount, not the
Yes,
not
so
the
it'll be
approved amount, right?
75%,
Okay,
guys,
thank
sorry,
you.
yes.
All right, thank you. Councillor Sorensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Hi, Mrs. DeBona.
Hello.
So I just read the notes that we're supplying a culvert. So we already had one in storage?
We
or did
purchased it
purchase
ourselves because we received better municipal discounts.
Okay.
So, but they included it as part of their submission so that everyone was on equal. So it is part of the contracted, like the bid submission from the contractor,
Okay.
even though we already purchased it.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Thank you, Lisa, for your presentation. Appreciate that very much. Any other questions arising? All right, someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor Sorensen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I make a motion that council awards the bridge file 80500 replacement project to BYZ Enterprises, Inc. in the amount of $429,502.50, including GST, to be exact, and provides $50,950 contingency fund for the project, with the funds to come from the approved 2021 capital budget.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thanks.
Item 7.3, CEO Performance Evaluation Committee, Mr. Tebow.
I guess I get to speak to this one.
Initially.
Right. I don't get the last speak. So this was decided upon, I think, back at the organizational meeting time, but there was no motion or council supplied names for this evaluation committee. So the information up there is just speaking about the idea of this committee being created and to add some members to it. I suspect you've already had those conversations, and if there was any questions around anything, feel free to ask.
All right, thank you. I think, just to clarify, unless anybody else got anything to add, you'd also add as well. We did have a discussion on that. So myself on the committee, as well as, I believe, Councillor Sorensen and Councillor Rudd. Is that correct? Okay. Any other questions or clarifications required? All right, Councillor Rudd?
Yeah, I just direct a question to the CAO, Mr. Mayor, thank you. In the accompanying documentation, there was that guidelines provided by CAMA, rather. So there's a portion in there that talks about the CAO giving a first read through and creating a matrix that would be suitable for our circumstance here in Taber. And you did circulate a document with a matrix on it, a performance matrix. Is that piece of work?
Yes, that is that piece of work, and I believe I have yet to take a second run through. Mr. Mayor and I had a conversation around, so what I gave you was the full gamut of items that could be something that we agree upon.
Right.
I've got a sort of a pared down version, if you will, as to what I thought would be most relevant. Of course, subject to council deciding that that is also most relevant to them. And the idea is that we do sit down together as sort of the second part of the recommendation suggests and come up with an agreed upon evaluation criteria and move forward with that. So I think I have yet to send that pared down version if I recall, but I will do that because recognizing the original one is quite substantive.
Well, it was quite comprehensive, exactly, so that's what it is. Yeah, so, okay, so we look forward to that then and appreciate your effort in that, so thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Councillor Beckerin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's 2 points to the recommendation, of course. There's the appointment of the mayor and the 2 councillors, and also further, the involvement of HR. Can we discuss that for a moment, please?
Sure, Mr. Tebow.
So I'm not sure exactly what you're wanting to discuss, but typically HR acts as that sort of liaison or non-biased third party to help with review so that questions don't have to come directly to me or consensus can be reached on with HR in the mix at some shape, someplace.
All right, thank you. Councillor Beckerin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Mr. Tebow. I'm prepared to make a motion then, Mr. Mayor.
All right.
That council appoints Mayor Prokop, Councillor Sorensen, and Councillor Rudd to the Chief Administrative Officer Performance Evaluation Committee, and further that the committee could request through the CAO that in further preparation and anticipation of the next CAO review, that HR begin assisting in action the deliverable requirements listed in the Schedule A of the Chief Administrative Officer Performance Evaluation Procedure.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Councillor Sorensen, I believe you had a question also?
I did. In regards to Schedule A, there's some dates mentioned. I just want to make sure that they're just suggestions because some of them have already passed. And so I just wanted to clarify that.
All right, thank you, Mr. Tebow.
So the dates you're speaking of, I believe, Schedule A, I don't know where that's sitting in here. But yes, the dates are I believe specified as in and around. I guess Schedule A, I don't see it on here.
Page 90. But I just wanted to clarify that before we put the motion through.
Yeah, the dates are in and around. So the idea is that there's some sort of a schedule to follow so that there's some deliverable and some dates towards that deliverable. If we needed to update things, like it does mention in and around, it doesn't have to happen on April 15th and on March specifically.
All right, thank you. Councillor Rudd?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure we are current with the obligations that were required of us in your contract, so we don't owe you anything at this particular time, and then we can revert over to Schedule A. Does that sum it up?
That's correct, yes. However, I'm willing to take $1 million at any point in time. No, you've met all your obligations. The original agreement asked for a 1 month, a 3 month, a 6 month. That's all happened. And the MGA requires an annual, and this was to update that annual requirement.
Okay, thank you.
Right, all right, thank you. All right, we do have a motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. On to item 7.4, letter of support, MD of Tabor Rest Stop, Mr. Tebow.
So I can speak to this one as well. There was a letter that came in from the MD that they have asked for our support for a rest stop between ourselves and heading east to Medicine Hat. And it's just here for council's consideration.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Councillor McLean?
Do they have any idea of where they would like to put it?
Mr. Tebow?
I don't recall there being a place specific. All I know is it's between here and Medicine Hat, so I don't know any more than that either. If the letter did not say,
All right, I guess just a question. We did have some input from Councillor Bruin on this, sitting on the Highway 3 Twinning Committee or at least a other member of the Highway Twinning Committee, Mayor Reynolds out of Bow Island, had some concerns about the chance of this holding things up. I said, it's a great idea, you gotta have it at some point, but I just wondered, would that be problematic in your mind to hold up the current project as it stands?
I guess I would be speculating. I don't see how this would hold things up. If anything, it could maybe be incorporated during. I mean, there is a potential, I suppose, if there's some controversy around where it should be. But I see it as being complementary. I don't see it as being problematic.
All right, thank you. Again, I guess they haven't been specific, they probably haven't figured that out yet, exactly where that should or shouldn't go, right? So a little early in that stage of the game. I don't know, I thought it was, speaking about what happened in Vauxhall, how that all came about, there was quite a lengthy process in making that ever happen there, so once they got all the pieces in place and the wheels in motion, it came to fruition, but it did take some time, quite some time. So hopefully that's not an issue in this case, but it's been made mention of many times. That's definitely something that's lacking. We know that affects our Tabor Walmart and the community and area as well that way. So I don't know what else, unless, I mean, the letter's very good that administration's drawn up so far. Any other questions or concerns related to that possibility that was brought up as a concern? Councillor Beckering?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I don't think it would hurt for us to send a letter in support of this new initiative. I think that once Alberta Transportation receives it, there'll be some reaction on their part to what they want us to do or not, or they want someone to do. So I don't think it would hurt to send a letter of support at this time, Mr. Mayor.
All right, thank you. Any other questions or comments? All right, someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor McLean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council authorizes the mayor to sign the letter of support for the MD of Tabor's Highway 3 rest stop proposal.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 7.5, proposed social media public engagement terms use of policy. Mr. Tebow.
We'll call upon Megan Brennan to come speak to us, please.
All right, thank you. Ms. Brennan.
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council.
Good afternoon.
Our social media public engagement terms of use policy, ADM8, oh, that's a long title, is due for its 3-year renewal, and so administration is bringing forward a few changes for council to consider. To put it in layman's term, this policy is the house rules that the public adheres to when they interact with our social media policies and clarifies the bare minimum for how administration handles engagement of the same. The policy itself has not seen any material changes since it was first adopted in 2016, but the shift in social media over time requires those changes now. As you will note within your RFD, most of the changes provide further clarity for the public on what is acceptable when interacting with our profiles and what is not. We've learned over the past few years, and particularly the last two, that the tone of social media has become quite negative, but our policy didn't quite cover everything administration needed to in order to make sure our platforms remain a safe and welcoming space for citizens to engage with. Additionally, within the last few years, some platforms have provided the ability to turn off or limit comments. In order to respond to this new feature, administration has provided clarity on those rare events when comments may be limited for our posts. Because we want to remain open and transparent to the public as a public body, administration wants to stress that limiting comments will always be the exception and not the norm. And you'll see those changes within the document highlighted attached. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions council may have.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? All right, see none, someone prepared to make a motion? Councilor McLean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council approves the social media public engagement terms of use policy ADM-8 as presented.
Thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. On to item 7.6, proposed social media internal organizational usage policy. Mr. Tebow.
Megan's going to stay standing.
All right.
Stuck with me. Administration is bringing policy ADM 7 earlier than its typical September renewal, just so both social media policies can be edited at the same time in the future. The social media internal organization ADM 7 is the policy through which council authorizes administration to use social media as an operational tool. It dictates the how, what, who, and when the town will use social media and clearly defines the roles of council, committees, and administration for the same. The changes proposed for this policy are minor and serve to provide further clarity to existing sections that have been in the policy for years, and I'll highlight them for council's benefit. As you'll see in the document, the policy clarifies social media use during emergencies for safety and encourages councillors to use their own political profiles to promote their various actions and service to the community. The first ensures that citizens will go to the proper channels during an emergency, and the second frees up editorial space on the main town profiles to promote events where council attends as a whole, which are typically bigger news stories anyways. The new changes also clearly indicate that committees have no authorization to direct the content or usage of any town profiles. That belongs in the hands of council, and we had to address that issue, so we wanted to make sure that was clarified. Additionally, administration added section 21542, which gives greater flexibility to promote a large or unique announcement during an election year, while still protecting town profiles from potentially being used to further the platforms of any candidates running in the election. We identified that this section was missing in the previous edits to the policy, and so wanted to add that further flexibility in case there were any large or very unique announcements during an election year that might pop up from time to time. Say the Highway 3 was twinned and that happened during an election year. That gives us the flexibility to promote something that council would be at during an election year. And so with that clarification, I'm available for any questions on this policy.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? Councilor Sorensen?
Thank you for the information. I just had a question on 2.14. So in regards to committees or volunteers of the town of Taber shall have no authority to direct the content. So I sit on the Arts and Heritage and the Recreation Board, for example. So could you clarify how those announcements pertain, and that those committees pertain to this policy?
So those committees make recommendations to administration and then up to council. They don't have the ability to direct how the town communicates. So that section states that communication belongs in the operational side of the municipality. We don't want our volunteers on our committees to go onto these boards thinking, oh, we'll just post this on social media, change the name of this social media, we should be on Instagram, we should be on LinkedIn. That belongs in the purview of council and administration. So However, saying that, if a board or a committee such as the Arts and Heritage Committee or Municipal Planning Commission wants certain things communicated, they can certainly bring that forward to the administration that is at their meetings, and those administration members will come to me. So if the Arts and Heritage Committee, say, is working on, and I'm just going to pull at strings here, working on an open mic night with the town, if they want that communicated, that's something that the Recreation Administration would work with me on. So that makes that clarified.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that.
All right, thank you. Any other questions? Someone prefer to make a motion? Councillor Sorensen?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I make the motion that council approves the social media internal organization usage policy, ADM-7, as presented.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Item 7.7, proposed whistleblower policy. Mr. Thibault.
We'll get Ms. Carrie Van Ham to speak to the whistleblower policy with some updates.
All right, thank you. Ms. Van Ham?
Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. So this is coming before you because when we're up for our 3-year renewal, as you know, in policies and procedures, that we take a look at all the legislation and everything as it pertains. So what we discovered is that the whistleblower actually doesn't pertain to council. Council has its own legislation, which is the Council Code of Conduct. So that we removed that portion and directed the whistleblowers through to the appropriate venue for that. Additionally, the Police Act prescribes how complaints against the chief or members of the police are to be done. And so we've also clarified that in this new policy that's come, or the refreshed policy that's come before you today. So I'm available if you have any additional questions.
All right, thank you. Any questions arising? All right, seeing none, someone prepared to make a motion? Councillor McLean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council adopts the whistleblower policy ADM-6 as presented.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. On to item 7.8, department reports. I will go through those individually. If anybody has any questions, please advise accordingly. Councillor Rudd?
Yeah, question to Recreation. There was a meeting with FCSS and discussing partnership opportunities for Senior Week and Culture Days. Just that go well?
All right, Mr. Thibault?
Were you in attendance to that, Brian? Can you speak to that?
Maybe somebody else went. Okay, well, encouraging to see that somebody's meeting with them and working on plans, so. Okay.
All right, thank you. Anything else related to Recreation Department report? All right, next is Administrative Services report. Fire Department report. Engineering and Public Works report. Councillor McLean?
I just had a question. There was renovations at the bathrooms at the youth center. Where is our youth center? I just don't know that we even had a youth center.
Oh, Mr. Sheriff, you want to speak to that?
We can get
Ms.
Carrie
Van
to
Ham?
speak to that.
Okay, sure.
She looks after that.
Yes, it's, council, it's one of our lease spaces, so it's realistically a little bit south and east of the cemetery. So just around by Kent McDonald's Park. Yeah, there's a building out there, and then there's also a campground right next to it as well, so, yeah.
All right, thank you. Councillor Rudd?
A question on the library engineering report, Mr. Mayor. Just wondering, it looks like some work is going to be taking place at the library. Is that correct?
Mr. Sheriff?
Yeah, it's just, there's been some issues there. We've gone, obviously there was moisture, so we've hired MPE to look at that, so we've mitigated most of the moisture. So there will be a project coming back for council's consideration.
Okay, so is this considered a serious problem, or our library going to be okay?
Our library's fine.
Okay.
They're just, we need to get rid of some water. And we don't know where the best recourse is at this time. But we'll bring that back for council's consideration.
Okay, thanks.
All right, thank you. Anything else related to Public Works? All right, on to Finance Department report. CAO report. HR Department reports. And Plan and Economic Development report. No other questions, all right. Someone prepared to make a motion to accept those for information? Councilor Rudd?
I'll make that motion, Mr. Mayor, that council accepts the department reports as presented.
All right, thank you. Motion on the table. Any further discussion? All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. On to mayor and council reports. Councilor Sorensen, we'll start with you, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I attended the Joint Economic Development Committee meeting. I attended a parliamentary training session. I attended the Police Commission orientation session along with the monthly meeting. Just a few dates that I wanted to throw out there, March 30th, the South Grow Annual Economic Summit is being held, so I plan on attending that. The Chamber Annual Dinner is April 1st, and they're recognizing businesses of the community and some great volunteers, so if people can attend that, that would be a great thing. And the STARS auction is being held April 2nd. So a lot of things happening in the community if we can go out and support that.
All right, thank you. Councilor Rudd?
I attended my committee meetings, Mr. Mayor, and I was away for a short duration as well and enjoyed that, and thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. Councilor Firth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attended all the meetings that I was required, including the Chamber of Commerce, Arts and Heritage. We had an informal meeting, and then the actual meeting itself, a Cornfest Committee meeting for the Chamber of Commerce, the Police Commission information session, and also the regular Police Commission meeting. And I attended the Gord Bamford concert as a volunteer, and I just wanted to point out what a well-run event that was. And I spoke to the organizer, and they conveyed that working with our staff at the town, they were very pleased with how the event ran. So.
All right, thank you. Councilor Beckering?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I attend all the meetings I'm required to attend. No more Zoom meetings, thank goodness.
This week, yeah.
And I also attended the parliamentary procedure session in our council chambers last week, very informative, and learned something again. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Councilor McLean?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I also attended all the meetings as required, and also the Joint Economic Development Committee meeting. That was very informative. Granted, it was on Zoom, which was not very fun, but we held it nonetheless. And the library board, and nothing else to report. Thank you.
All right, thank you. For myself, I also attended all the meetings as required. There's some extras, a few extras as per usual. Dealt with a variety of document requirements, some media reports. Also attended the Gord Bamford concert. It was very well done and a lot of fun. MC'd that as well, and had a great time with that. Thanks to all the Town of Taber staff and all the volunteers that helped. For the 470 strong that attended a sold-out show, so kudos to the Town of Taber all the way around for all involved and what that did for our community. Much needed event, long overdue. Also, lost my train of thought. Sorry, Councilor Beckering?
Well, Mr. Mayor, I'll remind you in a sec. I thought the Gord Bamford concert was for younger people, Mr. Mayor.
Well, no, absolutely. You know what? It was anywhere from I think about 4 years old to I don't know, 80 years old, somewhere in that range. So, absolutely, yeah. There was quite a variety there. So definitely not just for the young people. We all had a good time. Maybe a tad bit loud for the older age ranges, but overall it was great. And look forward to more of those in the future there. So thanks for all involved with that. With that, someone prepared to make a motion to accept our reports for information purposes. Councilor Firth?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move that council accepts the mayor and councilor reports for information.
Thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. On to item 710, standard item council requests. Mr. Thibault?
As usual, we've got our standing items in front of you. We were able to look after the first one on the list, being the property tax penalty information. The remainder are in progress in hopes of clearing up 2 or 3 of them for sure at the next meeting.
All right, thank you. Any questions on what's outstanding currently? And any new standing items for any members of council they wish to bring up today? All right, seeing none, I would ask, Rayanne's got to set up for a dinner break here, so I would ask for a 30-minute recess for dinner break. Councillor Beckering?
Mayor,
Thank you. Motion on the table. All in favor? Carried unanimously. Thank you. Hey, Jordan, we're live again. All right, thank you. If you could reconvene the meeting, please. And on to item number 8, delegations. There are no delegations. Item number 9, meeting inquiries. Mr. Tebow.
There are no media inquiries that have come my way.
All right, thank you. With that, I'd ask for a motion to move into closed session. Councillor Beckering,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Also move.
motion on the table.